is E&P Reports, a vodcast from editor and publisher. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. And this episode sponsored by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide understand the need to accelerate its growth now. Plus, traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way. IQ Audience Plus is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers media companies to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income now with IQ Audience Plus. Visit townnews.com EP today to learn more. And hello once again, Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine, listening to us on your favorite podcast channel. Please follow us, watching us on the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell to the right. You'll get an update each and every time we upload a new episode of E&P Reports. I don't know if you've ever heard of a small town called Del Rio, Texas. I've never been to Del Rio, Texas, but it came to me through a New York Times article about a year ago when a newspaper shut down, the News-Herald, that printed there for a long, long time, leaving another one of these, I guess I can use the term news deserts. Enter in a guy by the name of Joel Langton. Joel, hello. How are you, sir?
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you? Or good morning, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm very, very, very well. Thanks for asking. You are a 58-year-old, I don't know, I'm reading from the New York Times, military public affairs veteran. It's interesting that you come from the military and you live in Del Rio, Texas, because it's a military town, right? You were doing public affairs for the base there. Were you stationed there first and then left? I mean, how did this all come together here?
My wife and I came here for a 3-year tour 16 years ago.
Okay.
And so I retired here and they were kind enough to ask me to stay around. And I got a great job, loving what I do. I get to write, I get to do all these fun things with the military. I love those kids who serve our country. They are just fantastic. And that's what I did. And so, but we had a good paper in town that had an incredible local staff that was owned by a chain called Southern Newspapers. And you could watch everything was dwindling. Their page count, when we got here, it was 5 days a week, I think. And eventually it was 2 days a week with about 10 to 15% ads. During my 32-year career, I had been able to oversee the military newspapers and that kind of thing. And I'm not a really smart guy, Mike, but I know 10 to 15% ads is not a good thing.
No, it isn't. And whether or not the parent company, I don't want to say anything bad, because, it just was going through the same troubles and traumas that a daily newspaper can have in some markets, getting advertiser support, I assume, or subscription support. Who knows? Was the market at the time also having problems economically, would you say, at the time?
Del Rio is a town of about 35,000.
Yeah.
With a lot, thanks to the border situation, thanks to the Air Force Base being here, there's a lot of federal money. So if the rest of America is going through a recession, we're not necessarily going to go through that recession because of the consistency of the federal dollars.
But regardless, the paper shut down, and that was in 2020, correct?
Yes.
In November of 2020.
No, just before Thanksgiving. But we started 830 Times about 6 months before they went under.
Okay, let's introduce that. So you had started a website only,
yes,
local news site called 830 Times. It's at 830times.com.
Yes.
830, correct me if I'm wrong, is your area code. Do I have that right? Okay, good. So, and what was this, like a feel-good site, local entertainment, local happenings?
Well, I knew what was going to happen. It was going to go under at some point, and we had to have some cycles and some revolutions learning how to do this, because my original plan was we'd go strictly website and provide all the news through that. Well, the moment it went under, the News-Herald went under, we started getting calls, would y'all consider doing a paper product because of public notices? And once again, I'm not a smart guy, but I went, oh, you'll give me money to do this? Sure, we'll figure out something to work. So our news goes into the website first.
Okay.
And then it comes out in the paper. That there's a large part of the community that loves that newspaper.
So the daily paper went away in November of 2020.
Yes.
You started a print project very quickly afterwards. You just
3 weeks
scrambled.
afterwards.
In December, you issued your first, and it's a weekly tabloid print product, correct?
Exactly.
So you've been doing it now for a bit over a year.
Yes.
How many pages are you at now? What is your ad count, if I may ask?
Well, my guidance, one thing I've done really well with this, I hired a great team.
Okay.
I took the best of the former News-Herald, and Brian Argerbright, the sports editor of the News-Herald, is also on many levels our editor. He is a great editor. He makes us all look good. And he designed it. This past week, we were at 28 pages. The week before that, it was 44. And my guidance is very simple. We're going to keep it at 50% ads. We don't want to go too high. We don't want to go too low, but we want to, we're not going to be stupid either. I'm not going to go 25% ads on a 40-page paper.
Of course.
We're going to make sure it pays for itself in the right way.
And I went to your website, and you have a lot of ads on your website as well. You are obviously doing well with your advertising sales. Is that the part of the business you handle, or do you have someone out there pounding the pavement for you, or how did you grow all this advertising?
I left the Air Force about in August.
Okay.
And that was so we could focus on the ads, because if you don't have the right ad ratio, you're not going to survive. And so, yes, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I do a lot of the ads. But I've got some other folks who have helped out different places. They've sold 1 or 2 ads, but I'd say 70 to 80% is me knocking on doors. But then again, that's where the News-Herald helped us a lot, because people are going, well, we got to support it to have a paper.
I love the feel of your content too. Obviously, your editor and you understand that hyperlocal journalism is about local. And it's really very locally focused. I mean, you do have the hard stories. I saw that. You are a watchdog for the community. You are that check on power, but you got the church suppers too. You've got the local high school happenings. You've got it all. Go ahead.
No, I got to give, I gave Brian a lot of credit. I also got to give Karen Gleason, who she goes to every city council meeting, every county commissioners meeting, and she's sitting there. And if you go to our paper today, we have conflict in our community. The county judge and some of our commissioners are at war with each other.
I saw that. And
Karen,
you're covering it. You are.
That food distribution story that we just posted a little while ago is fantastic.
And you got a national issue going on now with Chinese money flying around. Am I right? I mean, what is that all about? I couldn't even. China bought, or a Chinese company bought, a whole mess of acres near you. Is that what's going on?
You went way back in the archives there, my friend.
I Googled you, and it came up high in Google News, which means it was getting national attention. You were actually the source for because Google works on what we call relevance and popularity, which means you were getting a lot of links on this content. So what was this? What were you covering that became a national thing? What was that?
Well, our local Air Force base puts $2 billion in our local economy every year. So everyone tries to protect that. Well, there was a Chinese company that bought, I want to say 230,000 acres right by one of their low-level routes. And this Laughlin Air Force Base is the biggest producer of pilots than any other base in the Air Force. So a lot of people said, we got to protect those routes, because if we lose those routes, what's the value of Laughlin? They don't have anywhere to teach flying.
But you got covered the story. Everybody was following your story, this was a big deal. Is that wind farm there now, or is it still on hold? What's happening? It was
stopped. The governor of Texas was the one, Governor Abbott. They pretty much shut it down through.
Wow.
I gave the governor credit. He signed the bill, but a couple of state representatives produced the bill that says if you're China, North Korea, Iran, and there's one more I'm blanking out on, you cannot connect to the electric grid. Because you got to remember, it's about a year ago now when we had a foot of snow. Now, where you're at, a foot of snow is not a big deal. And our little desert here, it is a big deal. I say desert because of the environment, not because of the news cycle.
In Tampa Bay, if we got a foot of snow, it would be a hell of a big deal.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I know what you mean. Anyone?
No, I thought you were in New York. I apologize.
No. Okay, let's move on now to the other thing I explored about your market. You're a 35,000 population city, yes. And there's a county there. What's the name of the county again?
Val Verde County.
And but you've got 200,000 people across the border from you that are part of your economy as well.
Ciudad Acuña. And we're right in the middle of the whole border situation. About in this past summer, we had 15,000 Haitians living under our bridge here. Because
you were the town with the bridge then. I was, again, fascinating. That's a 200,000 population that must feed the economy or not feed the economy. Is it detrimental? Is it part of your ecosystem? I mean, what is it like to have that big of a population a stone throw away?
Well, what we like to say is we are one. Our whole community is one, because at one time, people just went back and forth freely. In today's environment, it's not quite as easy to cross, but it's a lot of people in Del Rio work in Acuña.
Of course.
People in Acuña who work in Del Rio. So there's a lot of back and forth. And it's just, we are one. I work with a radio station now. It is owned by a guy from Acuña. Both of our local radio stations are owned by people who either used to live in Acuña or live here now. And
what about Hispanic publishing? Are you thinking are you bilingual in any way? Are you thinking of moving in that direction to artificial intelligence or anything like that? Or are you going to maintain what you're doing now?
Definitely wouldn't do it with artificial intelligence, because AI doesn't always do a great job translating.
Okay.
But there are other publications here. We have Zocalo. We have those publications that do a pretty good job. They've got a niche that we're not going to jump into.
So you're going to stay in your lane, and you're just going to that's cool. What about, I got to ask now, when the paper folded, or when it didn't really fold, it shut down, the parent company took it away, just to make sure we're saying it correctly. Was there enough classified revenue, jobs, homes, and cars to take over? Are you in that space at all, or is it just basically branding, ad revenue?
Mike, I know you've got a lot of smart people watching this, and I cannot figure out the best way to jump into the classified market, because we've got a very lean team. There's 3 of us full-time. We got Brian, Archibald, Karen Gleason, and myself. Then I've got 3 part-timers who do things from make sure the website goes, they do my graphics. And then I've got most important one is I've got an accountant who tells me I'm about to go into the red.
It's like my wife does with me with E&P. You can use my favorite joke. I always say to people when how's it going? I said, you hear all this talk about nonprofit journalism? Well, I haven't made a profit yet, so we're nonprofit. I know the feeling when you're just trying to squeeze a few dollars out of the operation. But I have a feeling that
if I'm going to expand into classifieds, I've got to hire another body.
No, I was just about to say there's going to be about 10 companies that advertise with this that are going to contact you immediately from hearing your words, because you're going to move into a space that will likely be do it yourself. There are ways you can get into jobs, homes, cars, and personal ads and all that, and local milestone ads and obituaries, all with a do-it-yourself environment. So I'll help you out, my friend.
I appreciate it. That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's I've gone through some of your podcast or video cast you've done. I'm learning. The business side is what I'm having to learn the most. And
I got to be honest with you, my friend. You're doing it right because your gut's showing you how to do it. I think your journalistic training in the military definitely didn't suck. I'm learning more and more about that because we're actually investigating the new organizations that are helping military veterans get into our industry. I don't think that just because someone has been in this industry for 20 years, they're smarter than you. I think your model is going to be very, very successful. Then I have to ask you, if I may, the next question. You're totally free. You have no intention to charge for subscriptions, or are you thinking of locking down for content? What's your plan?
My plan, we have a great town here. And my plan is to give them as much news, as much information as possible for free. We constantly, like I said, I've got a 1-hour radio show now every morning. We call it the 830 hour. But I constantly praise our advertisers. Please support them because they're helping us give you news. I mean, let's face it, Mike, we're all in the publishing business, but I think everybody out there has been frustrated by a paywall at some point. And I think as long as we keep our operation lean and mean, we can keep the info out there. I mean, look at how much our publication's gone from 20, 24, 28, and now we're fluctuating between 32 and 40 pages. It can be done. And it's so much simpler.
If the content rocks and people see what you're doing for the community, it can be a win-win-win. I'm very impressed with your page count and your ad count right now. Website is very robust, full of ads. Content is very, very current. I'm applauding you in a lot of different ways. So don't keep saying you're not smart. I think you've got the secret sauce to do well. Which brings up the final thought here.
Hey, Michael.
Excuse me.
I'd rather practice humility than arrogance.
No,
I know I'm no dummy, but any credit my publication gets goes to this community and my incredible staff.
Well, I always like to say I know what I know and I know what I don't know, and those are the kind of, and I think you're just like that as well. You're not going to sit around and tout, but the New York Times gave you some press. We're giving you some as well. So let's you're getting up there like me. I mean, you and I both knew when Paul McCartney was in a band before Wings, right? Way back in the old days. Okay, so we're in that era. Is there a legacy for you? Do you have a family that would inherit this in time? Is there? I got to ask, not to get too personal, or are you going to thinking of just keep holding on to this puppy and grow it and sell it someday? What's your end game going to be?
My goal right now is make sure we have enough money in the bank for the next issue.
Okay. There's the pull quote. That is it. That's amazingly well said. I mean, right now you're not thinking long term. It's just enough money.
In a lot of ways, we are thinking long term. You're going to start seeing more videos on our site. We're taking steps to do, because I love my print. I love my newspaper. There's nothing finer than newsprint on my fingers. I love that. But our world is changing, and I think a lot of times if we put a 90-second video up there, it will increase our watchers, readers, whatever it is, their understanding of the story.
And don't overthink that, my friend. Just let whoever's covering the story whip out their phone and take that video. You don't have to overthink this. Trust me, you don't. It's good content, and get it out there. And I agree with you. We print every month, and I plan to continue to print every month, but that doesn't mean the website is not a very viable channel to grow audience as well.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
Something we did is during I don't want to call it a Haitian crisis that reflects poorly on a country. I don't mean it like that, but when we had all of our Haitians here, 15,000 people, all under one bridge, I was down there and we would just go live on different things. We had a congressman who came in, say he was doing a little boondoggle press conference. And so I'm down there, I whip out my phone, I cover it. But then afterwards, I see a state trooper. And I found out he was the public affairs guy for this region. So I said, hey, can we go live for 3 minutes? We did that. And there's over 1 million people that watched that one video. And
you have the unmitigated gall to say you're not smart. I'm sorry, sir. That was brilliant. That was exactly what your gut told you to do, and it was the right thing to do. I am impressed that you would do that.
Someone like you's impressed by something I'm doing that honors me.
No, but you got in the middle of the story. You didn't overthink it, and you covered it. And I'm going to go watch that video. I missed it, but I'm assuming when you did it, you made sure you were serving your community. You were giving them the valuable information they needed to coexist with these 15,000 people that were starving under a bridge. I mean, you were doing your job. How are you? I was going to ask finally, how are you respected now? We had someone like you on our program, another gentleman who was running a small market, very successful in Arizona. And he said to me, when I'm standing in line at McDonald's, if the person in front of me likes me and the person behind me hates me, I'm doing my job right. If both of them don't know me, I suck at my job. How are you doing with the city fathers, the chambers? Are you respected, even though sometimes you're poking them? What would you say your perception in the community now? Because you're only a year and a few months old with your brand, and that's important. What is your street? I always call it your street cred. How would you describe it with the movers and shakers?
I think it depends on who you're speaking to, because the person behind us does dislike us sometimes. The person in front of us does like us sometimes, and I'd say our cred is growing, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing a radio show every morning is to help spread that brand. It is called the 830 Hour. So we can get it more out there. We are all in on Facebook trying to spread that brand. You know, anytime I can help with an event, one of my questions is, hey, can we put our logo somewhere with this event? So we help spread that brand. You know, there's such great knowledge with social media out there on YouTube and such. I try to get wisdom from people like Gary Vaynerchuk and all those who talk about this is a way you spread the brand.
That's exactly right.
You notice I am wearing my 830 Times shirt right now.
I noticed that over my left shoulder, sir, is my logo as well. No, yes. You get it. If anything, I think you could, and you're not going to like hearing this because you're too modest. You could host a master class today in what it takes. I can't believe I'm telling you this because and what it takes to survive in a very tough culture now. Consider it a brand, spread that brand.
Absolutely.
It's goodwill to the community. Think about your reader first, because if you have lousy content, the whole thing falls apart. Serve them, and then support your advertisers. And you and I both are doing the business side at E&P. I trust my journalists, my editorial team to do the job and try to stay out of their way sometimes. So they
absolutely.
Just serve that community. If someone, where's the website again? What's the web address?
I sound old when I say that, sorry. 830times.com. We keep it a cent. And when I first started it, I went and looked at the delriotimes.com. That name would have cost me about $2,000. 830times.com cost me $7.
Right, of course.
So I went with 830 Times.
Did anybody at the News-Herald offer you their database? Did they come and say, here's at least our email database from our subscribe? Did you get any of that? Did you ask them for that or not? It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. They were trying very hard to sell their publication for $1 million. So they weren't going to give. They weren't going to give what? Huh?
No buyers. No one came in.
Someone bought the building.
All right. Well, listen. And if they want to get a hold of you, what is your email address, sir?
You see, joelalangton@gmail.com. You can see it right there. And my phone number is 618-593-2285. I've gotten some great mentorship from some publishers out there who have reached out and said, man, we like what you're doing, or man, you're an idiot. Now, I haven't run to the idiot comment yet.
But if anyone's traveling to your county or to the Del Rio area, you welcome them to stop by and have a cup of coffee with you and talk about journalism.
Buy them a cup of coffee or something stronger.
It's Texas, all right. I would assume so. This has been an amazing interview, Joel. Thank you so much. We wish you a lot of success. I'm so glad we set aside this time to meet you. And by the way, keep it up, please. The industry needs people like you right now who get it and are fighting hard to help the community with great journalism.
Can I throw out another commercial for you?
Sure.
You're talking about what you're trying to do with veterans. I would encourage all your folks, if you're looking to hire a writer, you look at Defense Information School. We call it DINFOS. But those journalists receive some great training. And right now, those military journalists are coming out. They've got print training, video. Someone can even do radio. So if you're looking, find somebody with that pedigree.
I want you to do me a favor then, Joel. I want you to find the Military Veterans in Journalism. If you heard of them, MVJ. I just interviewed them. It's an organization of veterans who are in journalism. They just started a few years ago. Massively cool organization, great resources. Just look it up on Google, Military Veterans in Journalism. Here's the funny thing, and we learned from our interview with them, 7% of the population are veterans, but only 2% of people in journalism or in our news media are. So if you're talking about equity and diversity, hire a veteran so your news operation starts to mimic the community. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
There you go. Thanks, Joel, for your valuable time. You stay healthy and well, and good luck to you down there in Del Rio. Keep it up.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an honor.